POLIWRATH has always had a pretty rough time in competitive Pokemon, to put it lightly. Its typing has always been pretty cool, but everything about it, other than that, has always let it down. Its stats are well rounded, but in a jack-of-all-trades, master-of-none sort of way, and it's notably always struggled with a lack of good physical fighting stat. When Brick Break of all things is probably your best option, you know you're not doing great. POLIWRATH is almost always outclassed at anything it could hope to do, and as a result it's been a lower tier Pokemon for its entire career, and its impact on OU has been minimal at best. Well, that's kind of a lie actually. There's a few exceptions to this. The first and probably best known one is in Generation 1, where POLIWRATH has a small, kind of notable niche in OU as an Amnesia user that packs Hypnosis and Stab Submission to hit Chansey real hard. There's plenty of content already covering this, most notably Big Yellow's video on fighting type Pokemon in RBY, so I won't be going into any more detail. Instead I'll focus on another major exception that I'm much more qualified to talk about, which is POLIWRATH's success story in Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee's overused tier. You see, it's not just viable in the tier. POLIWRATH is an absolute staple and has been among the list of OU Pokemon since the very start. Let's start off with direct buffs POLIWRATH received in Let's Go, as it was one of the lucky Pokemon that actually gained new moves. The moves in question are Superpower and Low Kick, two of the best fighting type moves available in the game. This improves POLIWRATH an absolute ton, as it fixes the lack of physical fighting style I alluded to earlier, and gives it an actual presence when it's on the field. Now this is great and all, but it's not enough to make POLIWRATH a serious offensive threat. There are fighting type Pokemon in Let's Go that are faster, stronger, or both, and Water Stab doesn't really make it any more threatening than those alternatives. In addition, Mew and Zapdos are two of the most popular Pokemon in the tier, and both pretty much entirely wall POLIWRATH, especially as POLIWRATH can't even hit Mew for super effective damage. Fortunately, POLIWRATH more than makes up for this with its defensive capabilities. Picture this, it's late 2018 and you're playing the newly released Let's Go Overused. Melmetal is absolutely everywhere and people are losing sleep trying to figure out how to take it on. Not only that, but Mega Gyarados is also pretty popular and notorious for being unwallable, and Cloyster is pretty deadly too as a sweeper with Shell Smash. You look desperately through the Pokédex for answers to these problems, and you happen to stumble across a single answer for all three, which is POLIWRATH. Of Melmetal's three standard attacks, those being Double Iron Bash, Ice Punch and Earthquake, POLIWRATH resists the first two and doesn't take too much from Earthquake. Versus Mega Gyarados is exactly the same story, with POLIWRATH resisting Waterfall and Crunch and taking neutral damage from Earthquake. In fact, POLIWRATH is one of the two Pokemon in Let's Go that resist Mega Gyarados' dual stab, and the other one is Mega Gyarados. It also vitally resists Surf and Ice Beam from Cloyster, forcing it to use Self-Destruct early and end its sweep. That's not all though, as POLIWRATH's fighting stab allows it to actually threaten Melmetal and Mega Gyarados in return. This made it a fantastic answer to two of the biggest threats in the metagame, which led to it becoming a pretty popular choice on bulkier balanced teams. Of course Melmetal could run Thunder Punch to break through POLIWRATH, but Melmetal has always preferred to run either Toxic or Thunder Wave as its last move, so you're safe most of the time. POLIWRATH also has another trick up its sleeve, that being Toxic. While almost every Pokemon in Let's Go lands the move, POLIWRATH has a strong case for being the single best user of it. It has a great matchup against Melmetal, which is the most common Toxic immunity, and it does well against Nidoking and Nidoqueen too, who are also pretty popular ones, as well as Alolan Dugtrio. As previously stated, it's also really good at luring in Mew and Zapdos, two Pokemon that you really want to land Toxic on. This ability to reliably land Toxic on these two Pokemon famed for their longevity is great support for a variety of Pokemon that the duo could otherwise spam Roost against. Alolan Dugtrio is a good example, as it can more easily break through Mew when it's Toxic, and becomes even more of a nuisance against Zapdos without having to sacrifice one of its own move slots for Toxic, letting it run both Substitute and Sucker Punch to maximize its offensive capabilities. POLIWRATH's ability to check the aforementioned threats and also force Toxic onto Mew and Zapdos has held true throughout Let's Go OU's entire lifespan, but a few recent developments have breathed new life into it and let it thrive in a whole new team style. The first development is the rise of Mega Blastoise. Stoice is an extremely deadly water-type Mega Evolution that's borderline unwallable and makes use of attacks that are all resisted by POLIWRATH. Convenient, huh? POLIWRATH can't threaten Blastoise as immediately as it can threaten Gyarados, but that's where another recent development, running Rest on POLIWRATH, comes into play. Normally Rest is hardly ever seen in Let's Go due to the lack of Sleep Talk, Heal Bell or Aromatherapy. It's typically resisted to teams featuring Starter Eevee thanks to its signature move Sparkly Swirl. By the way, let me know if you'd like me to make a video about Starter Eevee's history in competitive Let's Go. I think it could be a really fun one to make. Anyway, POLIWRATH is proving itself to be one of the few exceptions to the rule by viably using Rest. Rest allows POLIWRATH to comfortably switch in on Mega Blastoise over and over after afflicting it with Toxic, resulting in a fairly safe handling of one of the biggest threats in the tier. The last development is POLIWRATH's newfound high-level usage on a team style where it previously didn't exist, that being Mega Alakazam teams. Mega Alakazam teams typically aim to break down the opposing special walls and Melmetal before Mega Alakazam attempts a late-game sweep. This is effective, but it often requires a decent amount of risk and prediction due to a lack of strong defensive options on your team beyond your own Mew and Melmetal. POLIWRATH totally turns the style on its head. Instead of using other Pokemon to trade blows with Melmetal before Alakazam does anything, POLIWRATH teams use Alakazam throughout the battle to force damage against its own checks. If that check happens to be Melmetal, which it often does, or even something like Chansey, the Zam user can switch into POLIWRATH safely multiple times over, allowing them to repeatedly wear down the opposing Zam checks with very little risk. Additionally, the opponent will be heavily incentivized to preserve their Melmetal or Chansey free or Zam, forcing a switch that'll probably allow for a free Toxicon to a very likely Mew or Zapdos. This approach of using Alakazam to prepare its own endgame, and using Poliwrath as a reliable fallback option is as unique as it is effective, and was recently used by Solwind to win the 2022 Let's Go Summer Seasonal tournament. I plan to do a full replay review of the Grand Finals set, so stay tuned for that. All in all, Poliwrath's unique defensive profile and newfound access to reliable fighting stab give it a great place in Let's Go overuse, and it's unlikely to go anywhere anytime soon. I'd also like to briefly note that Poliwrath's success story doesn't end in Let's Go. Despite being PU in usage in Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl, Poliwrath is widely considered a staple of modern overused store teams, as it entirely shuts down two of the biggest threats to the playstyle, those being Crawdaunt and Weavile. It's not as widespread as it is in Let's Go, but it's a seriously good Pokemon, and BDSP gives Poliwrath easily its second best overused performance. Thank you for making it to the end of the video. If you enjoyed, a like and subscription would be greatly appreciated. My current goal is to make it to 500 subscribers by the end of the year so I get access to community posts. Being able to do polls and stuff would be really helpful for making the content you guys want to see. Also let me know in the comments what you'd like to see from the channel, or any other feedback you might have. And don't forget to join the Smogon Let's Go Discord if you want to try out the tier, or just talk to me, the link's in the description. Thanks for watching, see ya!